So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you kind of three directions. I'm about tshuva, and I'll talk to you about why I became religious. It's an interesting conversation. I don't know if anybody in the room, I'm not going to ask you to put up hands or whatnot, but maybe there are some Baal Tshuvas in the room, maybe not. And then I'm going to talk to you about career and how to mix Yiddishkeit with being a Jew. Because it's very tough, especially in America. Israel's a little bit easier, but America, that's like the big thing. Parnassa, Yiddishkeit, you know, how do you balance it? And I'm in my company uniform today. I decided, you know, instead of putting on a nice shirt, I'll just come in my grubs because it came right from my business. And I'm going to tell you how I got into this business. And then I have a very interesting story. I have an identical twin brother who lives in San Diego, California. And we just wrote a book together. And I was just on the phone with them. And we have a very interesting conversation that's been going on for 20 years about his life and my life. He's very secular. I'm not very religious, but compared to him, I'm a rabbi. And the question is, which one of us has a better life? The one who lives in California on the beach and makes a lot of money, or the one who lives in Israel, you know, near the Kotel and makes a bit of money, right? It's an interesting story, and it's something that you guys need to hear. So here's what I'm going to assume. I'm going to assume that you're at this yeshiva, that you came from, probably most of you from America, maybe you're some from Canada or outside, but all American. Okay. And probably a bunch of you are going to go back after some point in time after your studies, whether it's this year or next year. Maybe some of you will make Aliyah, you'll see the benefits of living in Israel. But either way, you're probably here because you're maybe living a little bit more modern Jewish lifestyle. Obviously, I'm going to assume that you're all focused on Shomer Shabbos and Shomer Mitzvahs, but you know what? But living in a modern world like we live in today, it's difficult to balance. You know, how modern do you become? How much do you focus on your parnassa and technology and kind of living in the world as we have it today versus trying to live in, you know, a traditional Jewish approach. You know, none of you are Hasidish. Maybe you are. Maybe okay you are, but you know, I don't know that you're going to be living in bed around the corner from us. Okay. Okay, so quick story, just a little bit about my background. I grew up for the first 27, probably 28 years of my life, I'd never even seen tefillin. I didn't even know what tefillin were. Okay, for 27 years. I grew up in Canada as a Reformed Jew. We were Jewish, you know, I knew what Passover was. We had a Seder for about an hour and a half. I never went to Jewish school. I never paid attention in after-school cheder. Judaism really had nothing to do with my life. I knew there was an Israel. I didn't know much about Israel. When I was 18, I came to Israel because I was on one of these backpack trips. I graduated high school. I went traveling for 4 months through Europe like every good teenager did. I went to, you know, 15 different countries. Ended up in Israel because I had a cousin here. It was a very different country back then. But, you know, I came as a tourist. I don't even know if I went to the Kotel because, you know, if it was on the agenda or not. But I certainly did not come as a Jew. I came as a tourist. And I had a really good life. You know, growing up, I was into sports. I had an identical twin brother, so, you know, Baruch Hashem, we were popular. We had a lot of friends. We didn't lack for anything. My family was not wealthy, but they were, you know, they were fine. And we had, you know, we had vacations, and we had a nice house, and we had a couple cars, and we lived a nice life, a beautiful life. And then I got married. In fact, I have another brother. There's three of us, so my twin and an older brother. And all three of us actually got married in the same year. So there were 3 weddings in 13 months. So I don't know how my parents paid for that, but they did. Thank you very much. And then I ended up, you know, I met a beautiful woman, a nice wife. She was also very secular when we met. She lived around the corner from me. I didn't even know her until about, you know, a few years before we got married. I had 4 daughters. My brother had 4 sons, and my other brother had 2 and 2. And great life. Great life. I don't know if you guys know what a cottage is. It's a country home in Canada. A lot of Canadians, they have homes like this. It's a wilderness country. You go about an hour north of Toronto, where I lived, and you're already in the country. They call it it's called the Canadian Shield. It's like rocky and forests and tons of lakes. It's beautiful. And I was big into windsurfing, water skiing, snow skiing, snowmobiling. I had all the toys. I had all the toys. If you guys knew me when I was your age, you would have loved to hang out with me. I had like 4 or 5, even a few years back, I had 4 or 5 snowmobiles. I used to take up all kinds of yeshiva guys. We'd go snowmobiling, water skiing. That was my life. It was a great life. And I'll tell you very quickly, because it's a long story. It's a good story, but it's not what I really want to talk about, so I'll just tell it quickly. My older brother was in law school, very bright man. He came home one day with a Catholic Italian woman and told my father that he's going to marry her. And my father went nuts. And my father, who had zero Yiddishkeit, my father, who I love very much, has given me two svarim in my life. Okay, one is why God has poisoned the world, and why the other one is, like Hitchens, why religion is terrible for mankind. Okay, and when I became Baal Tshuva, he basically tore Kriya, like how could you do this? You're ruining your life, etc. That's my father. I love him. Okay, but he doesn't understand religion, doesn't get it. And we lived our whole life, non-kosher, non-mitzvah, non-shul, non-everything. He didn't even have to fill in. Okay, never mind giving me to fill in by bar mitzvah. I didn't even know what to fill in words. So that was my family. Okay, he didn't know. I didn't know. Nobody knew. But my brother comes home one day and says, I'm marrying a shiksa. And my father goes off the deep end and he says to my brother, he says, if you marry her, I'll never speak to you again. And my father's a tough guy. Okay, maybe you guys have some fathers like that also, like just real tough guys. Okay, and he meant it. And my brothers, and all three of us, and my mother said, whoa, like where are you coming from? Like we haven't done anything Jewish. We eat treif all day long. We don't know what Shabbos is. We don't know what shul is. We don't know what it is. We know nothing about Judaism. And you're telling your son if he marries and she was a wonderful girl. My brother was dating her. She was a very nice Catholic Italian girl. So he says, I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm never talking to you again. So my brother, who's a lawyer, my older brother, very bright guy, he said, if I'm going to lose my father, I really want to know what I'm going to lose him over. And so he went and he started to learn about Judaism. He hooked up with HaTorah in Toronto. They were just getting started at the time. And he met some really nice rabbis. And if you guys know HaTorah, they have a nice program for learning about the basics of Judaism. And then you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. Anyway, my brother, who was an intellect, started learning. And he started bringing it home. He started bringing home some tapes. At that time, it wasn't CDs or MP3s. It was tapes. Listened to a lot of tapes. And we kept saying, keep the rabbis out of our house. It's good for you. Anyway, make a long story short, about 3 or 4 months later, he broke up with this girl. And he ended up, about a year after that, finding a nice Jewish girl, and they got married. But he started to become deeper in his learning about Judaism. And as he brought it home, I was married now, and I was just like, didn't have a shul to go to. And I thought, he's my brother. Okay, I'll listen to some of the nonsense he has to talk about. And so I would listen to some of the tapes. And, it made sense, right? You hear about some of the concepts in Judaism, and it starts to make sense. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. And so I learned a little bit more, and then I started to go to a shul that was a teaching shul, that, had some guys lecturing, and I got more educated, more educated, more educated. And then came the moment of truth, and I don't know if you guys know, HaTorah runs this seminar called Discovery. And it's for guys like me that don't believe there's a God, and certainly don't believe that the Torah was given by God. And it's this 2-day seminar where they give proof that God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. Okay, it's an interesting seminar. So 2 things happen if you buy into it. One is if God gave the Torah to Jewish people, it means the Torah is divine, and 2, there's a God, right? And if there's a God and the Torah, and God gave us the Torah, and you really believe that, then it makes a big difference in your life. Okay, I don't care if you're secular or if you're the most religious guy on this planet. You got it. In the last 20 years since I've been very focused, I met a lot of from people who haven't gone through, who don't really know if there's a God, and don't really believe, or with all their heart, that the Torah was given by God to the Jewish people, because it's the foundation for being a Jew. It's a foundation not for being a Jew. It's a foundation for being a believing Jew, and for really wanting to carry the mitzvot through your life. Okay, and I can prove to you, I can tell you in a second a little bit more, but I can prove to you in a minute and a half that there's a God, and I can prove to you in about 3 minutes that He gave the Torah. So I took this discovery seminar, and at the end, I'll never forget this. You got to picture this. I'm like secular. I'm dressed like this, okay? And I go to this. It was a weekend retreat up at this lodge up north of Toronto. In the country, beautiful retreat. And there's a bunch of guys in black suits with hats, beards. To me, this is foreign. These guys are aliens, right? And then they say we're going to daven mincha, and I don't even know what mincha is. Never even heard of mincha, right? And so I take a walk by the lake, and then we have dinner, and then afterwards, they start getting up, and the guys are dancing with guys. The guys are holding hands. I'd never seen this in my life. I'm in a gay resort now. There's a guy holding another guy's hand. I was scared, right? Don't worry. They say don't worry. And the women aren't they're on another side. There's this thing separating us. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what a mechitza was. I had no clue. right? All I knew is one guy's pulling me, say, dance with me. And I'm like this, like, don't touch my hands, like, get away from me, right? Anyway, a couple of chayos, because they know how to do it. Give a couple of scotches, and I, let my guard down. And I had a really good time. I'd never experienced that before. I mean, it's fun. Now, I would never go to a simcha where I have to dance with my wife. Like, it's not fun to dance with her. I would really rather dance with the guys because it's much more fun. But so after the seminar, we go through 2 days of the seminar, and by the evening, Motzi Shabbos, on the second day, the rabbi gets up and he says, okay, we've given you all the proof that there's a God. And then they had the speakers, Gerald Schroeder. You know Gerald Schroeder?
Yeah. He spoke here.
Like, the guy is, it's unbelievable, right? So I don't have to tell you because you've heard him speak, right? I mean, you listen to him, and if you walk away from that not thinking that the world could have been created in 6 billion years, then, there's so much math there, right? And it's incredible. But there were 5 guys just like him. Like really, like superstar dynamic speakers speaking about all different topics. Anyway, by the end of the 5 o'clock that evening, the rabbi gets up and he says, okay, we've given you the proof that, we've shown you that the Torah was given by God. And now you can decide what you want to do. You can leave here and, thank you very much for coming. It was great to have you for Shabbat and get on with your regular scheduled life, or you can do something about it. Have a nice life. That was it. And we left, and my wife and I drove home. And I remember that we didn't say anything to each other. Like I was driving home, I was shaking because I knew, oh my gosh, my life is going to change now. Like I didn't really want it to, but it's going to have to change. So what did I do? So I went to another discovery seminar about 2 months later. And then I went again. I went 6 times because I had to hear it so much that I had to teach it. But after I finished, it took me about 6 months, 7 months. I mean, I was convinced, and I still am to this day, that there's a God and He gave the Torah to Sinai. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. I'm not the greatest Jew when it comes to halacha. I never went to yeshiva. I should still, but at this age, it's hard for me to go. My Hebrew is terrible. Okay, I don't know how to go through a Gemara. I've tried and tried and tried. It's really tough for me, but I'm really grounded knowing that as a Jew, I have a Torah and I have a God, okay, and I have a purpose in the world, and that's a big thing. Okay, so cut a little bit further. So now my wife and I decided, we better think about how we want to live. We had 2 young daughters at the time. We have 4 now, and we decided to take a left turn in our life, or a right turn if you want to call it. And we became Shomer Shabbos. And it's funny, when you're Baal Tshuva, and you become, I'll tell you, I go to the cottage, I'm at my cottage, and we're Shomer Shabbos now. It's killing me. Because Saturday was like the best day of the week. Saturday you could go out, it was a holiday, you drive, go to the cottage, go water ski. And I remember I'm trying to keep Shabbos, but you forget because I was 32 at the time. My whole life, Saturday was just a play day, right? So we'd daven in the morning. We had this cottage area, and we had people coming up, and then I'd go and I'd walk down to the dock, and I'd get in the boat, and I'd just turn the key and go for a ride. And I said, oh my, what did I just do here? I didn't even remember. It took me probably about a year before all this happens for it. And finally, there was a non-Jew who was renting a cottage with us in this complex. I handed him my boat key and I said, here's what I want you to do. On Saturday morning, when you see me kind of come out of davening, I want you to take my boat out, okay? And don't come back, but just take it out and go back and forth on the shore, make it hurt, make it really hurt. I don't know why I told him to do that, but it kind of got it out of the system. My life was water skiing. I mean, I don't want to brag or anything, but I did not water ski with skis for 10 years. I was only barefoot skiing. Okay, I would jump in and be barefoot skiing. I loved it. It was and sailing and all that kind of stuff. But I still had that on Sundays. Anyway, so we became more religious. About a year into being Shomer Shabbos, I became the president of our shul, which was an Orthodox shul. Okay, most of the guys there were from a bunch of Baal Tshuvas. What was I doing becoming president? I don't know. Maybe because I was organized and I was a good business person. And then the learning kept going and going, and we enrolled our kids into not very frum, but very observant schools in Toronto, and they became more so than Baal Tshuva. They're almost frum, okay, because we got them at a good age to really understand what their Yiddishkeit was all about. I just want to bridge a little bit here. So the question though, some of the challenges that I had, which is a challenge that I still face today. Okay, when I transitioned in business, I'll remember there's some events when you're about true. There's some events that like stick in you. You'll never forget these things, right? Like when I first started to keep shows. But the biggest challenge I had was putting on a kippah to go to the office. My whole life, I mean, I was in senior positions. I mean, thank God, Baruch Hashem, I did very well in business. And I had a lot of companies. I'm an entrepreneur. I'll tell you about my business career in a little bit. I lost a ton of money. I was in high-tech, Internet 1, Internet 2. I mean, I played the game. Okay, and at some points I was worth a lot of money on paper in the stock market, and then the next day I was poor, you know, just based on NASDAQ going up and down. So I know that game. But I remember it was, oh gosh, probably about 15, 16 years ago. I was from for about 3 years, and I was going to the office, and I wasn't wearing a kippah, because it's scary for a guy to go to the office and declare that he's a Jew, right? And my rabbi kept saying, you got to put your kippah on. And you know, I was one of these guys where, as soon as I hit my neighborhood, my kippah came out of the glove compartment, I put it on my car. As soon as I left the neighborhood, the kippah came off, right? As I'm pulling into the parking lot of my business, the kippah would come off, and as I leave, the kippah would come on. That's how Baal Teshuvas, to a large degree, they live, okay? Until they get to the point where they believe. Anyway, the first day that I put my kippah on at work, nobody cared. In fact, the non-Jews didn't even notice. It's the Jews in the company that said, whoa, what are you doing with that thing? Like, that's a kippah, man. You know, like the non-Jews don't even know what it is, right? But I felt such anxiety for a week wearing my kippah to work until the point came where, you know, you just have to deal with it, and you have to say, you know, what do I believe in? What do I stand for? What do I represent? And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I felt the anxiety. Because at that point in time, I knew enough halacha to know what a Jew's supposed to do in business. You know, some of the early studying that I did was Hoshan Mishpat, like to really understand what the business halachas were, because I was in business and I wanted to know, like, what's stealing all about, and if finding, you know, doing trading and bartering and whatnot. So I knew a lot, and I said, well, if I'm wearing this kippah, like, I got to be straight up, straight as an arrow, because like I am now the representative of the Jewish people in this office. So if I do anything wrong, they're going to put me under a magnifying glass. And to this day, I still feel the same way. And it's funny, because I used to drive, and so maybe some of you guys do this also. I'm an aggressive driver. You know, people say, oh, you're going to drive in Israel, you're going to get killed. You know, me, I'm more aggressive than the Israelis. So I carry a baseball cap beside me in my car. I put my baseball cap on when I'm driving, because I don't want them to see like a frum Jew driving like a maniac, so I put the baseball cap on to drive. Because you know, the kippah says something. Anyway, so that's a little bit about my background. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in about a dozen businesses. I started off my career. I initially launched my career. I left business when I graduated business school. I started IBM the year that they brought out the first microcomputer. Okay, the IBM PC. And I kid you not, I was selling, and you guys don't even know what they looked like. The first microcomputers were about the size of this desk, and they were this thick, and they sold for $12,000. Okay, and they had 64K of RAM. You don't even know what 64K of RAM is. Like it's my watch has more RAM than these computers. And they sold for 12. And I would walk into, as an IBM rep, I'd walk into like the biggest banks in Canada, insurance companies, and they would like, oh, IBM's here, praise the Lord. How many can I get? And I'd say, well, we're on allocation. I can only sell you 600 today, and you only get 200, because they were selling hotcakes, right? Couldn't sell enough until the competition came to town, and then all of a sudden they became, and I remember I was working in a store called Computerland when Apple launched the Mac, the first Mac, and we all thought it was a loser, and it was the Apple C computer, and then the Mac, and then the Macintosh was a lot different before, you know, if you go back in history, you'll see this stuff. And I was in San Francisco. I did an internet startup. I was in San Francisco when Netscape went public. Netscape was the beginning of the internet, you know, and a lot of guys, I remember being in a room, I'll just tell you some fun stories. I was in a hallway when I was working at IBM. It was about 5 o'clock, we were finishing work. I was with like the brightest engineers. These guys, like, I was in the plant. Now, they didn't design the computers, but they knew everything about fixing these microcomputers. And one of the guys says, there's this new company that just got launched this week, Microsoft. And everybody says, forget it, they're done. It's never gonna happen, right? Now, had I invested $5, okay, that would have been 5 million about 20 years later. But you didn't know, right? You didn't know back then. There were companies that they came, they went. So I was in, after IBM, I went into computer manufacturing, computer sales. I opened a computer store. And then I got involved in the internet. I did an internet startup. It was called Gazoom. It was the most fun that I had. So this was the first round of the internet. There were 2 rounds. There was Internet 1 and Internet 2, or whatever you guys call it, Net 1, Net 2. The first round was 1990 or 91, when the internet first got launched. There was a ton of startups. And I raised, my first round, I raised $3.5 million. Like, money was just flowing from taps, okay? And then we were slated to raise $8 million on the second round. And it's the first, I took a trip to Israel, because at this point in time I was getting religious, and I was the president of the shul, and the rabbi said, okay, you're the president, you got to go on this mission, and we were going public. I said, I can't go. He said, you got to go, so I came. So there were no cell phones back then. Cell phones hadn't been introduced, they hadn't been invented. So I'm sitting, when you're walking down to the hotel, what's that Sparty shul again? In the square where the restaurants are?
Parat Yosef?
There?
Parat Yosef?
With the big dome?
Yeah. Rambam.
Oh, the Rambam
Yeah, where the barbecue joint is and all that. Okay, so there used to be a bank of phones there. You probably remember that. The bank of and everybody would be lined up getting on those phones, because it was the only phones in Israel that actually worked, and even then they didn't work, right? Like these pay phones. Anyway, I phone back to my office, and they say NASDAQ crashed. And I said, what does that mean? It said, we're ruined. I literally was standing, 500 meters from the hotel, and I lost everything. And I came, and 6 months later we closed. We had 60 employees, 62 to be exact. Okay, we closed the whole company. I probably was worth about $8 to $10 million on paper, okay, had we gone public, but done, gone, everything. Not just everything I had, but everything that, it was over. But me and probably 5,000 other companies at the time, 10,000 other companies, everybody just got flushed down the toilet. So it's kind of easy come, easy go. But the irony was I was in Israel when that happened. So God gave me a bracha. I'm not sure what the bracha is yet today, but it was some type of bracha that to get on with life. From there, I went into another interesting industry called retail merchandising. And retail merchandising is about $1 billion industry in the States, and nobody really knows what that is. So I'll tell you very quickly. I don't want to harp on it because I want to get to the main topic. I had a team in Canada. My brother and I actually teamed together and built this business. We had 700 reps, mainly work-at-home moms, that would go into Walmart, Home Depot stores, big box stores. CVS, the big drug stores, okay, or the Kroger food stores, and they would make sure that all the products that were supposed to be on the shelves were properly on the shelves, that they were priced properly. We would do demonstrations and training with all the staff, and most of my clients were big Fortune 500 companies: Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Heinz, like the big food companies, the big consumer products companies, Sharp Electronics, a lot of the HP, etc. We even had Sony, and we'd basically be their service people in large big box stores. And then we sold our company to an American company out of New York, and I ended up working for them for about 6 years until I made Aliyah. Okay, so that's kind of my background. The message I'm going to give you, okay, I'm going to give it to you fast. It really should be the core of this talk, but I have something else that's even more fun, more interesting. This book that I'm going to show you that I wrote. The core of this talk really is: can you make it in business as a frum Jew? Can you make it? Can you go to business? Can you go into business? Let's say outside of New York. There's certain places in New York you go into diamond trading or whatnot, and you can have a long beard and be Hasidish and do fine. But when you live in a large part of the country, like San Diego, or you live in Toronto, or you live in communities that don't have 1 million Jews in them, which is basically the rest of the world. How do you balance being a frum, observant Jew and being, a business person and making it in the business world? You have let's call them strikes against you, but they're not. They're actually benefits. But but the non-observant world, the non-observant Jewish world, will call them strikes. Shabbos. All of a sudden, you only have 6 days a week to work, not 7. And a lot of people tell you that 7th day, man, you can make a lot of money if you work on Saturday, especially if you're in retail or you're in service. Like, that's a big day. A lot of people go shopping more so on Saturdays than they do on Monday to Friday, right? Okay, kashrut. I can't tell you how many meetings that I had to go to with non-Jews in restaurants, okay, that I couldn't eat because they picked the restaurant. I'll give you one. I did business with Staples. You guys know Staples? Yeah. Okay, so they were a big client of mine. I had a good relationship with kind of the international business manager. And But when we go down, their office was just outside of Boston, and this guy was a big seafood guy, right? So we go down, and of course, I got to buy him lunch or dinner, right? So he'd pick the restaurant, we'd go, and conveniently, sometimes I would actually bring my food and say to the maitre d', serve me this. And the guy would say, what do you, and I said, serve it to me on a paper plate. So he said, why? He said, don't ask questions, okay? Whatever that costs you on the menu, you can charge me double. I would bring like a bag of pasta and say, put this on a plate and bring it out to me, okay? And whatever I order, it doesn't matter, just bring this out to me. Because it's just too hard to explain to these guys what kashrut is. So one day, we have a meeting, and I go down, and he goes. He liked the seafood restaurant. He was like shrimp cocktail, everything that is the worst, right? But it was on a fast day, and I forgot. And I woke up in the morning. I said, "Oh my gosh, it's a fast day. So I can't even have a coffee. I can't have a Coke. I'm gonna sit there with him. He's gonna be eating." And sure enough, he says, "What's the problem? You're not eating." I said, "I'm not hungry. My stomach, is not upset. But at least have a drink." Glass of water, Coke, something. I said, well, I better not. I might be coming down with something. And you know what? I don't know if I ever told him, but he saw I had a kippah. But he didn't huff because, you know what? A lot of the non-Jewish world, they don't really understand what our world's all about, right? Eventually, I think I probably told them that I'm observant Jew, but I didn't really want to get into explaining what kashrut was. It wasn't like it takes away from the whole meeting. You have 1 hour with these guys or 45 minutes. So I stayed away from that. Although I have some interesting. I have an identical twin brother, okay, mirror image. I'm going to show you a picture of him in a minute. He doesn't keep Shabbos. He's as secular as you get. He stayed as secular as we were growing up. If anything, he maybe got more secular. I love him. He's a great guy. Okay, we lived in the same city until he moved to San Diego 5 years ago, and I moved to Israel a year and a half ago. But we lived in the same city up to that point.
I'm sorry, the brother from before?
Sorry?
The same brother from before?
Yeah, the twin brother.
The one that was showing you the tapes?
No, the one that I have that's my older brother.
Oh, sorry.
My older brother. Yeah. Okay. So people used to say, Larry, what's this? You're supposed to be observant, and I saw you eating at that treif restaurant on Shabbos with a blonde woman. What's up with that? Hello, guys. And I saw you drive away. How many people saw me drive on Shabbos? Okay, because it was my brother. I lived with this for so long. We had a great relationship, and it played to our favor a lot also. But being a frum Jew, living in the same city with your non-frum brother, and a lot of people don't they don't call you on it. You would call me on it. You would say, hey, and I'd say, well, what were you doing in that restaurant watching me? Well, I was just walking through a mall. What are you doing walking through a mall on Shabbos? So, but even just eating the treif restaurant. So it's interesting. But coming back to business, there are challenges. So, kashrut, Shabbat. Okay, a lot of the halachas that we deal with as Jews in terms of, let's say interest and trading. And, I'm not going to make this into a class on Jewish business ethics. But the way a Jew does business, okay, is a little bit different than the rest of the world, and you have to be very conscious of it, very cognizant of it. And I certainly tried to be, and then there's always, questions that come up in terms of how you can stretch the envelope and who's, is this the right decision to make? And we all know someone who wears a kippah and a strimal and a bekisha, who is the biggest guy, right? Everybody's got the story of that guy, okay? But, we try to be the best people that we can. But I'll tell you now, okay? It's a very interesting conversation my twin brother and I had. Okay, as we were going through, he has made more money than me, okay? And he would always say, it's because I worked on Saturday and you didn't. Had you not become the Shomer Shabbos crazy guy, okay, you might have made more than me, or the same. Then I'd say, you're wrong about that. You don't get what life is all about. You don't get where you come from and what you stand for, okay? And I said, and then we got a little bit deeper, because he does, when you learn a little bit, you say, okay, where does God give out the rewards? I say, his name's Jeffrey. You might be in trouble. You're getting too much in this world. You got to leave a little bit for the next one also, right? Not that it's your choice of how much you're getting or not. It's the big guy upstairs, but the less observant you become, maybe the more he's giving you in this world. Maybe the more reward you're getting. Now, I'm not suggesting to you guys that, hey, throw off your kippah and start becoming, secular Jews, and maybe God will give you more wealth, because it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, okay? But if there's a God and He gave us a Torah, then there's a system. There's a system, and you got to believe in that, because the non-Jewish world out there, the Jewish non-observant world, the Jewish secular world, okay, sometimes make it more difficult for you in business than the non-Jewish world. Okay, now I'm not saying that there's anti-Semitism, there is, okay? But to a large degree, when you're doing business, you'll see, whatever professions or careers you go into, let's say you become a doctor and you're in a hospital and you're the observant Jewish doctor, as much as possible, you try not to work on Shabbos, right? But then the other interns out there, they say, well, that's not fair because I'm Jewish also and I have to work on Saturdays when I would like to, have a day off, and how come this guy gets a day off? And sometimes they resent it more because they're Jewish, but they're not observant, but they know what it is to be a Jew. I had more challenges in my career with secular Jews than I did with Gentiles in terms of understanding and giving some slack. However, there's no correlation, unless you guys can show me, between being observant and rich or observant and poor, or secular and rich and secular and poor. There's no correlation. There's a ton of secular Jews who are billionaires, and there's a ton of secular Jews who are terribly broke, okay, don't have a nickel today. And there's a ton, not a ton, but there's lots and lots of religious Jews who are billionaires, and lots of religious Jews who are broke. And there's no correlation between it. There's no correlation between, if you're observant, you're not going to make as much money. I'll tell you what there is a correlation between, okay? And we won't go too deep into this because I'm very opinionated about this. There's a correlation between, if you're not prepared to work at something, then generally you're not going to be successful at it. Now, whether that's working at studying or making parnassa, okay, there's a correlation between if you put the effort in, the hishtadlus, then you have a better chance of the outcome. I'm not saying you're going to get it, but you have a better chance. Then if you just say, hey, God, I'm not going to wake up today, I'm just going to stay in bed, but can you send, a couple $100, through the manna tree? It doesn't work that way. Get out of bed, okay, do what you need to do, hit the books, hit work, whatever it is that you're doing in your life, and put your hishtadlus in. But he controls the outcome. You don't. All you can control is the effort. Now, a secular Jew will tell you, I control the outcome. If you're secular, because you feel that, if I put the work in, then, the reward comes. But then things get mixed up a little bit, because what if I put all of this work in and I don't make it? I don't make a ton of money. Or what about the guys who, you all know this, whether your friends or your parents' friends, I'm going to call them the schleppers. Like, they're not really smart people, and they don't really work that hard, but they got a ton of money. Whatever, they made a smart decision, they made it. Okay, so we tend to judge people on how much money they have, okay, not how much brains they have. So you're going to run across a lot of people in life like this. The ones who have a lot of money but don't have a lot of brains, the ones who have a lot of brains and don't have a lot of money. You say, where's the correlation? It's the same correlation of the ones who are really healthy who get sick. And the ones who are like terrible, they smoke and they eat the wrong foods, and they stay healthy their whole life. There's not a correlation, okay? And if you ever try to make a correlation, it's not going to work for you, especially in business. So that's really the message that I wanted to give you about being in business. Now, I came here, I don't know Hebrew, okay? We made Aliyah a year and a half ago because I believe that Israel is the promised land. Israel is the place where the Jewish people, it's the last stop for the Jewish people. Okay, and again, it's not the topic of tonight's conversation, but I'd love to talk to all you guys about it, to tell you why you're better off in Israel, economically, okay, not just spiritually. Spiritually, there's no question you're better off here, but economically, it's a better life here than you're going to have in America, okay, unless you got really, really rich parents who are going to buy your lifestyle in America, but if you're going to try to make it on your own, you got a better shot here, okay? We can talk about that or later on, or you can ask me questions about why I feel that way, okay? But in terms of your outcome depends on what God has in mind for you, what He has in store for you. Okay, let me switch topics a little bit here because I want to get into this topic. So my brother and I have been arguing. As I told you, I've been a Baal Tshuva for about 20 years, 22. I can't remember now. Okay, and I grew up. My brother and I, identical twin brothers. Okay, I'll pass this around in a second. Like we're mirror image twin brothers. And I'll tell you what mirror image means. If he stands in front of me, then I write with my right hand, he writes with his left hand. I throw left, he throws right. Okay? I have a dimple on one side, he has a dimple on the other side. I have two thumbs that are different shapes. He's got them on opposite hands. My father has these, my mother has these. Okay, this is real stuff. It's called mirror image twinning. It's very rare, but it exists. I have 4 daughters, he has 4 boys. Like it goes on and on and on. Now, I'm observant and he's not. The more observant I got, the less observant he got, or the more secular he got. As I told you, he moved to San Diego, California 5 years ago. He's a big golfer. I was into the water sports, he was into the land sports. He was like big in racket sports and golfing. And he's a good golfer, really good golfer. In fact, we played every trick the twins could play on people. We have switched on everybody. We have quit jobs, we've girlfriends, wives, you name it, we've done it all. Okay? The first 60 pages of the book is just twin switch stories. And they're great ones, right? But he's a good golfer. He moved to California because he wanted to live a golfing lifestyle. He wanted to live the American dream on steroids. And Baruch Hashem, he made money. He had some good businesses and he made some money. He's not a gazillionaire, but he's got enough to live in a nice lifestyle. And you can test, he lives on a beautiful golf course in Del Mar, okay, in a 6,000 square foot house. He drives very fancy cars. And he's not ostentatious. He's got two of his boys live with him in California and 2 are older, they're off to college. He golfs about 6 times a week. Okay, but he's a fast golfer. He golfs in like 2 hours, 2-hour rounds, fast. And you know, they go to dinner, they have a night, but he's not ostentatious, I'll tell you that. He's not like crazy, he doesn't do stupid things with his money. And he's very generous. He gives money to charity, to tzedakah. And that's, it was about 18, what am I saying? It was about 4 years ago. He had moved to California. And every time he came back to Toronto, he would stay with me. He's my brother, right? Okay, so it was about 4 or 5 years ago now. And I wake up one morning, a Saturday morning. It was it was like July Saturday morning. It was beautiful weather. And I'm getting ready, and I come upstairs, and I've got my suit on, and my kippah, and I'm getting ready to go to shul. I got my tallis bag. And at the same time, he comes down the stairs, and he's got his golf shorts on. Okay, and he pulls his clubs out, and we leave the house at the same time, and we're laughing, you know, because that's his shul. He's going to temple, and I'm going to shul, right? Okay, because that's what he calls it, his temple, because his temple is nature, right? Okay, as it turns out, okay, we got home at exactly the same time. We had a kiddush that day at shul, so it was like I was at shul for 4 hours or some crazy amount of time, and I walk up. It was about noon, and he drives up, okay, and he just finished his round of golfing. And he says to me, who had a better morning? And I said, I had a better morning. I was with the creator of the universe. You were just on some golf course that he created for you. I was talking to him. He says, you are delusional, okay? You have no clue. You wasted your morning, okay, saying some stupid words in some stupid book that you don't even understand. Well, I was out golfing with my buddies and having a great time in a gorgeous day. So that's when the arguing started. We were arguing for about 15 years before that. But the question was, who had a better morning? Okay, and the question is, who had a better day? The bigger question is, who's having a better life? Him or I? So we wrote this book. It's called Play or Pray. Okay, it's about our life. Okay, it's about, he's the play guy and I'm the pray guy. Okay, now, do I spend my whole life praying? No. Maybe I should, but I don't. Does he spend his whole life playing? No, but there's 0 pray in his life. Okay, I'm going to tell you the last 2 pages of the book, the conclusion of the book. His conclusion is, okay, a life of play, okay, is the best life you can have. It's called the life of comfort. And play has no pray in it. There's no room for pray. Pray is a waste of time. Okay, trying to talk to this God that you think exists that doesn't really do anything for you. He believes there's a God because he's smart enough to know that this world cannot be created without a God. So he's not an atheist. Okay, he believes there's a God. He just believes that God, you know, is the theories, you've heard them, we won't go through them, but you know, God created and he left. He took off, he went to Florida. Now question, you know, where'd he go? He's infinite, right? You can't go anywhere, right? But God is not involved in our life, he's not involved in the world. For whatever reason, he created us, and he said, and he just let the world run on its own, and that's my brother's theory, that's what he lives by. And don't try to have a relationship with him because he doesn't want you to have a relationship with him. And this book that, you know, you guys spend so many hours over was written by a bunch of men, you know, 2,000 years ago or 2,500 years ago, whatever. Okay, it's a waste of time. That's the conclusion he comes to. My conclusion is you have to have a life of both, pray and play, because we live in a physical world. Play is the metaphor for physicality. Pray is the metaphor for spirituality. Pray means having a connection with Hashem. Play means living in his world. Okay? So play means Yeah, you gotta eat. You gotta have dinner. You gotta have a little bit of exercise in your life. You have to do some things that make life enjoyable. God gave us this world. Okay, it's not a playground, but it's a place to live in a physical reality, right? So my conclusion is play and pray. His conclusion is play only, no pray. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that topic, because this is what you guys are going to be facing. This book is about the American Jews today. That's what it's about. It's not about the guy sitting in Shiva here, because you represent 1/10 of 1% of Jews in the world. Okay, the vast majority of Jews who live in America today are secular, and they're intermarrying like crazy. The assimilation rates are out of control. You've all read the studies. Okay, they're still Jews, and they're still good people. I'm not going to judge who's a good person or not. I'm going to judge who's a good Jew. I can tell you that. That I'm very opinionated about. But the vast majority don't live in New York, in Borough Park, okay, or New Square. They live in Denver, and they live in San Diego, and they live in LA, and they live in Toronto, and they're nice people, and they're getting on with life, and they're going to treif restaurants, and they go to, a Pesach Seder for a few hours, one night a year, and they have a really good life. They have a really good life. And you guys, as much as you're being educated in yeshiva, which is wonderful, and as much as, the lifestyle that you've probably grown up with and will probably choose, okay, is going to be a frum lifestyle, this is going to be all around you, all around you. It has to be, because the world is getting more and more, through technology and through materialism, the world is getting more and more into play, right? How do I make my life comfortable? That's what this metaphor is. It's a comfort-seeking Jew versus a purpose-seeking Jew. So that's what I call my brother. I don't call my brother a secular Jew, I call him a comfort-seeking Jew, because his life is about comfort. So now, Reb Katz says I ask a lot of questions. I do ask a lot of questions. For many years, as a Baal Tshuva, first of all, you tend to ask a lot of questions. But because of my nature, I would ask other people questions. I would have people to my Shabbos table. You don't want to come to my Shabbos table because I torment you. I say, introduce yourself. What's your name, your favorite color, and your purpose in life, right? Which of your siblings do you like the most, and why? If you had to choose one to be on a desert island with, which one would you do? Which one would you go with? If you could go back in time to any point in history on a time machine, where would you go? And if it was a one-way trip, would you stay there? I have hundreds of questions, I wrote another book. I didn't bring it tonight. Okay, it's a great book. It's called For $25,000, Would You Take the Mezuzah Off Your Door? So let me tell you about this book just for a minute, and I'll get back to that one.
It's a long title.
It's a great title, and it's got a handful of money on the front. I should have brought it, but I don't know why I didn't.
You wrote this one too? Or?
I wrote it for. It's a shorter book. It's a much smaller book. It's 75 pages, and the book is about. I gave it out. I printed 7,000 copies and gave them out in the community that I lived in, because I lived in a community of very secular, assimilating Jews. And I wanted to say something to people, but I didn't necessarily have the opportunity to say it face to face to them, although I did with a lot. But I gave them a book instead, right? And it was a good book. But the question always was this. Like I told you, earlier on, I said, I can prove to you in about 3 minutes that there's a God. And I can prove to you in about 4 or 5 minutes that he gave the Torah. And I used to say to people like this. I'd get secular Jews, your age, okay? 18, 19, 20, guys, on top of the world, good athletes, whatever. I don't need this Yiddishkeit stuff. It's a waste of time, right? I said, okay, guys, let me tell you. I'd say like this. You might be interested. I said, let me tell you why in about 5 minutes you're going to tell me that you're an idiot. I said, what are you talking about? I said, you're going to say to me, I'm an idiot. So now the only question I have to deal with is, why would I even want to talk to an idiot? So they say, well, what are you talking about? I said, do you want me to show you why you're going to tell me that you're an idiot? So everybody's intrigued by that, right? You guys are probably intrigued, right? I said, okay, I'll tell you very quickly here. I said, do you have a mezuzah on your door? 99%, I don't care how secular they are, 99% of the guys in the room would say, yeah. I'd say, okay, good. I mean, if they didn't have a mezuzah, man, you're really assimilated. Like, I don't care. You can go to any Jewish home in America, and 99 out of 100 are going to have mezuzahs on their door. So I'd say to them like this. Okay, I'd say, I'm going to give you $25,000 to take the mezuzah off your door and never put it back on again. You take the money? Okay, 99% of them would say no. There's always 1% that would say yes. Okay, 99 would say no. 50,000, no. 100,000. I went to 1 million. I said, guys, I'm crazy eccentric. I literally will take out my checkbook, Okay, and I'll write you a check for $50,000 or $100,000 if you promise me, you make a vow that you'll take that mezuzah down, you'll never put it back up again. They said, won't do it. And I said, why? I said, I don't know. I said, I know why. Because there's this angel of death outside your house, and if you take the mezuzah, he's going to come and he's going to choke you to death. No. I said, okay, what's in the mezuzah? So 50% of that 99 would say a scroll, right? So half of them don't even know what's in it. It's a plastic, I don't know, it's a piece of plastic on my door. Half of them don't even know. 50% of those say it's a scroll. So then I say, what's in the scroll? What's written on the scroll? And then half of them say the Shema. The other half, so now 75% don't know that it's the Shema. And then I say to you guys, why do you have the Shema on your door? And maybe 1%, because these are secular Jews, maybe 1% might say, because it says in the Shema to put a mezuzah on your door. But other than that, I don't know why. So I say, let me ask you a question. You just gave up $50,000. You could buy the nicest sports car. Not maybe not the nicest, but you could buy a really nice car. And you don't even know what that little piece of plastic, you gave up $50,000. What does that make you? You guys would say, I must be an idiot. Hello? So why am I even talking to you? Do you want to be an idiot your whole life? So at least before you decide if you're going to give up Judaism or you're going to hold on to your education, at least get educated. I said, that's why I wrote that book. I said, read the book. It'll tell you why you have mezuzah on your door. And then you can decide. Then you can make an educated decision, should I keep this mezuzah on my door or not? You can make an educated, should I keep kashrut? Should I keep Shabbat? Should I be a Jew? Should I even be proud to be a Jew? Get educated, find out what it is to be a light unto nations, and then make at least make an educated decision. Like if I said to you guys, I give you a key and there's a chest outside with $100,000 in it. And you say, I don't want your key. Why wouldn't you want the key? Like at least go look in the chest. Maybe I'm full of it, but at least go look in the chest to see if I'm lying or not. And because if I'm not, you're $100,000 ahead of the game. If I am, then you're no worse off. So when it comes to our heritage, to being a Jew, okay, especially in business, find out what it is that you're doing. Okay, just a little bit more on this and then we'll get back, because this is the topic. The topic is, who has a better life? Would you have a better life if you weren't an observant Jew in the business world in America? It's a really good question, because one day you're going to go back and some of you guys are going to make it big. Okay, whatever you do, whether you're professionals, whether you go into business, okay, some of you are going to hit it, some of you might not. Okay, that's up to God. As I said, you guys put your hishtadlus in and let him take care of the rest. But the thing that you're going to be dealing with, the challenge you're going to be dealing with was the rest of the Jewish world, okay, is going to look and say, you'd be way better off if you, just lightened up a little bit, become more modern, instead of becoming more yeshivish. Maybe take off your kippah when you go to the office. You're still a Jew, it's fine. Instead of davening 3 times a day, maybe you daven Shacharis and Maariv, but you can cut out minute. It interferes with the rest of your day. These are questions, you're going to see this all over the place, right? Again, unless you live in Borough Park or somewhere else, which I don't imagine a lot of you guys will end up there, right? You'll end up in mainstream America. So the question is, who has a better life? Now, how do you answer that question? How do you answer the question, does my brother, who lives in San Diego on a golf course, in a 6,000 square foot home and has and a beautiful family, wonderful wife, okay, have a better life than me, who lives in Eretz Yisrael? I'm not suffering there. I live in a nice house. Okay, it's certainly nowhere the size of his, but I have nice things. I'm not poor or starving. Okay, I have the plate, but not anywhere near what he has. But I try to focus on the plate. But how do you answer that question, who has a better life? You got to think about this, because even though you grew up from, and even though you think you really believe in God and Torah and halacha, okay, at some point in time it's going to hit you, and it usually hits you when you're down. Like you lose a job, for instance, and you're like, oh gosh, how am I going to support my family? And all of a sudden, the bills start to pile up. You say, maybe if I wasn't, if I didn't run to learning, and I gave up an hour here, an hour there, maybe I could make it happen. Okay, sometimes it hits you when you're sick. That's for sure. We shouldn't have to deal with that. But the question you got to deal with is, how do you know if you have a better life? Now, I have a perfect opportunity, because I have an identical twin brother who lives the opposite, who lives in the other side of the Jewish life than me. So we can judge each other directly. But there's no right answer. But I'll tell you how I judge. I'll tell you how he judges. How do you think he judges? Who has a better life?
Who's happier?
Okay, happy's good. Happy's good.
Who has more things?
Okay, materialism. Who's got more toys? If you're gonna play, you need the toys, right? The guy who's got the most toys win. There was a famous guy, millionaire, who said that. You know, the one with the most toys at the end wins. Guess what? We all lose if that's all we're focused on. Let's go back to happiness. Happiness is great. I love happiness, success, pleasure. What is happiness? Are you happy?
I think so, yeah.
How do you know? Look, okay, I'm miserable. I'm having a terrible. I'm not happy. Tell me how I should be happy. Can you make me happy?
No.
Can you tell me if you're happy? Sorry, I'm going to pick on you. What's your name?
Mick.
Mick. Okay. You seem to be a happy guy. You look happy. And you said you're happy, and I'm not. So can you explain to me how I could be happy? Be friendly to me. Really, I'm just reaching out to you.
I really don't know what to tell you.
Okay, because you'll say, because it's personal, and I don't necessarily. Can anybody else here happy?
Yeah.
I mean, surely you're not all miserable, right? You're not happy? Okay, so you don't have to answer the question. I'll get you on success. Don't worry. Okay, you're happy? What is happiness?
Happiness, it's a good feeling, man.
It's a good feeling, okay. But can you help me to understand how I can be happy?
Be comfortable with yourself.
Okay.
Be content with what you have, I guess.
It's not true.
Have a purpose.
Have a purpose.
Have
Okay.
a line to follow.
We're digging, you guys. All I'm doing is I'm letting you dig. Okay, we're gonna dig deep because.
I think your brother could be happy.
He is
could
happy.
be happy.
He is happy.
It's possible he can be happy.
No question, he's happy. He's a
Happier
secular.
than you. It's possible.
No question. No question.
Because I think it's just a deeper happiness when you have purpose. But you still have happiness by having things. It's possible.
No question.
How do you define happy?
Okay, we're gonna get to that. I'm gonna give you one sentence that's gonna change how you think about things in a few minutes. Okay. Okay. Anybody here want to be successful?
Yeah, sounds okay.
Or do you want to be failures? I mean, it's okay if you want to be a failure, then we'll just institutionalize you. I'm going to assume everybody here wants to be successful. Okay. What is success? What is success? What's success in this world?
Life.
It's money, right? Success is money. Okay. What's success in this world?
This was.
It's connection. It's connection with Hashem. Okay. I mean, and the whole system that surrounds it, right? Okay. Okay. But really, what is the definition of success? So somebody said to you, how do you know if you're successful? When do you know that you're successful? How do you know? Because you all want to be successful, right?
You've met your goal.
Mick, are you successful today?
No.
Why not?
More successful?
Yeah.
Because I would define it by money at this point.
Okay, so you define, so money, you don't have as much as you want, but you're not, poor, you have a few dollars.
I wouldn't say I'm successful though.
Okay. Sorry, what's your name?
Successful to meet your goals.
Meeting your goals. Okay, so if you don't have goals, can you be successful?
No.
So let's say somebody they don't have any goal, and they buy a lottery ticket and make $1 million. Are they successful?
No. That might have been your goal though. Your goal is to win the lottery.
Okay. Okay, but let's say it wasn't. Let's say somebody gave you a ticket. So even though you're rich, you're not necessarily successful?
Because you don't have the respect.
Do you guys buy what he's saying?
Yeah.
No? Anybody want to disagree?
What else?
Okay.
Specifically what?
Success is reaching your goals.
What else are you succeeding at?
It's a little bit.
What's your name, by the way?
Avi.
Avi. Okay, anybody want to argue with Avi, or do you agree with him? Okay, so what's your name? Ezra? Okay, so you guys are a bright group, okay? I agree with you 100%. Okay, you're right in the mark, and I agree with you 100%. Okay, so here's how it works in life. I'm going to tell you, and you can argue with me, and then I'm going to tell you all of your purpose in life, okay? Because purpose is important. First, I'm going to tell you the only way to be happy and the only way to be successful, it applies to every human being that ever lived, ever will live, and ever has lived, okay? It's eternal, what I'm about to tell you, okay? And you can argue with me, and then we can talk about love. We can talk about any character trait you want to talk about. Success, okay, is getting what you want. Success, that means you need to have a goal. If you don't have a goal, you can never be successful. You can be rich, you can be healthy, you can even be happy, but you can never be successful. Because if you don't have a goal that you've reached, success is just about reaching goals. That's all it's about. Success is getting what you want. First, you have to know what you want, and then you have to get there. Okay? It doesn't mean what you want is what you need. Like you might say, I need $1 million. And God says, no, you don't. You think you do, but you don't. That's what you want. Success is getting what you want. God determines what you need.
But you consider this an objective goal. I mean, not by materialism, but by spiritual life. There's definitely an objective goal. Even if you didn't want to be, let's say you didn't want to be fully religious, but you succeeded at it. This is an objective goal.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Hold on to that thought. Okay? Success is getting what you want. Let's say your goal is, I want to be an observant Jew. I want to connect to Hashem. That's a goal. It's a tough goal, but that might be a goal. But if your goal is, I don't want to connect to Hashem, and you do, then you're not successful. Okay? It's crazy, but success is getting what you want. Okay, what's happiness? Happiness is the feeling you get when you appreciate what you have. Whatever, it doesn't matter what you have. If you appreciate it, you have this feeling of elation. Okay, this like smile. So if you could be dead poor, but if you appreciate anything, you appreciate that you're alive, you appreciate that you can breathe, you'll be happy. You could be the richest person on the planet. You could be, Bill Gates. Okay, but if you don't appreciate what you have, you will never be happy. And we see this all the time with sports stars, entertainers, the Hollywood politicians. You see all the famous people, right? Some of them are filthy rich and filthy successful and famous. And they're not happy. They're miserable. Some of them even kill themselves. And then you see like Rebbeim, for instance. They don't have 2 nickels to rub together. But they're smiling. They're so happy because they appreciate their life. They appreciate what they have. They appreciate their learning. So success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. You remember that, you will have a successful and happy life. It's one line. Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. If you remember that, you'll be happy and you'll be successful. And if you're not, you'll at least know why. Okay, now let's just get focused because we're going to go back to this. What is the purpose of life? It's the same for everybody in this room. It's the same for every human being, okay, that ever lived, will live, and has lived. Okay? The purpose of life is the same. It's a good idea to know your purpose in life. Because if you don't know your purpose in life, how can you ever achieve it? Right? Okay, so what is the purpose in life?
Truth.
So what is truth? Truth is, it's a good word, but you have to expand on that.
That's all I got, bro.
That's okay. Okay. You're in the zone. You're in the zone,
Yeah.
but you just have to, your kids come to you one day. Like one day, hopefully you guys, you'll have families and you have young kids, and your 5-year-old will come to you and say, Daddy, what's the purpose of life?
Truth.
Or 10-year-old or whatever, right? I mean, I have that all the time now. I have older kids, right? Truth. But you say truth. Truth or dare. I mean, okay. Anybody else have a purpose in life? I hope you guys all have purposes.
In a spiritual sense, or in
Any purpose.
anything.
Anything you want. This is an open question. Open question. What do you think of?
I think this is gonna sound cheesy, but fulfilling the will of the Creator would be the purpose.
That's pretty cheesy.
It is cheesy, but yeah, I think it's truth.
You think that's truth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to take a stab on?
Probably say the same thing.
Huh?
Same thing.
Same thing. That's the ultimate purpose in life, is just fulfilling the will of the
I
Creator.
got another word.
You mean
Alright. I mean, because that's the ultimate.
Where did you learn that?
Where?
Yeah, like where did you come up with that?
Say this
There's so many other
Rabbi.
things that you can come up with.
It's the only. I guess it's the only true meaning. Everything else is.
Okay, well now you're putting the word meaning in. We'll get to meaning.
they're mixing really.
It has to be the true purpose because you were created by the Creator. Therefore, your creation can only be for the Creator because you didn't exist beforehand. Therefore, everything you do must be for the Creator.
Okay, so that's your final answer?
That's my final answer.
Okay, anybody want to challenge him on that? Okay, your final answer is 100% correct. 100%.
Well,
Okay? The ultimate purpose in life is to do the will of God. That's the ultimate purpose. For every human being, not just for the Jewish people, for every human being. It's just the Jewish people, we have a special position. Okay? We've given a different mandate than the rest of the world. But that is that's the purpose of every human being, to do the will of God. Okay, now, what is pleasure? You want to have pleasure in your life? These are important words: success, happiness, purpose, pleasure. Anybody want to have a pleasurable life? Okay, so how do you have a pleasurable life?
Physical pleasure, spiritual pleasure.
Okay,
Type of pleasure.
like what's I'll tell you some pleasures.
Pleasure's what
Eating
makes
is
you feel good.
pleasurable. You eat 3 times or 2 times a day. Some food can be very pleasurable, some can. Technology can be pleasurable. Sports can be pleasurable, right? Looking at things, art and scenery and stuff like that. Okay? Relationships can be pleasurable, right?
Girls.
Yeah, exactly. Having a relationship with family or spouse or girlfriend or whatever can be pleasurable, right? That's pleasures.
Okay.
So, how does pleasure fit into purpose?
How come your purpose can't be your pleasure?
So, Sort that out for me.
That means that you enjoy doing what you think is what you see as is correct. When you enjoy thinking that your purpose is, you enjoy fulfilling and succeeding in that way.
The ultimate purpose in life is doing God's will.
Yes.
But what's the regular purpose in life? What do you think?
Regular person life?
Yeah.
Staying alive and happy.
Okay, staying alive is pretty easy for us, right? All you have to do is just eat a little
So
bit
I
and
guess
breathe.
kind of staying happy
Okay, but how do you stay happy?
by being
Appreciate
feel
what
like
you
you're
have.
fulfilling your purpose.
Okay, but do you want more in life than just to, let's say that maybe you want to make a few dollars. Okay, every day I can wake up and be happy and be a miserable failure in terms of business or learning or something like that. I don't have to come to you. I don't have to go to work and make some money. But I can be happy. But do you want to be successful also? Maybe you want to be successful. You have some goals.
Well, maybe success can help you, if it helps you on your way to your ultimate purpose, then it's good.
I would say it's not
money,
part of
not for
purpose.
money's sake, but for serving God's sake. Meaning, if you have a bad life, it's going to be harder to serve God because you're going to be worried about your life.
Okay, so let me give you a formula here. Okay, these are important questions. Okay, the purpose of life is to maximize your pleasure. That is the purpose of life. The ultimate purpose of life is to do God's will. Why? Because it's the maximum pleasure you can get. Okay, it's just a tough pleasure. You guys heard the 5 levels of pleasure?
Like,
Gone through the 5 levels of pleasure?
Yes.
No? Okay, I'll
Yeah.
go through them quickly. It's very, very important.
like Gemara,
Is that a Jewish concept?
Yeah, it's from Pirkei Avos.
it's like
Packaged stuff from Pirkei Avos. Everything I'm telling you is Torah related. Okay? In fact, all knowledge is Torah related.
But how could the ultimate purpose be pleasure, or doing the will of God because that is greatest pleasure? If in a sense you're doing it for yourself.
Okay, I want you to challenge me on what I'm about to say, okay? It's going to take me about 10 minutes to say it, but you can challenge me as I go, okay? There's 5 levels of pleasure. Your job as a human being is to try to maximize those 5 levels of pleasure in your life. And you don't do one at a time. It's like when you have Shabbat lunch, and you have cholent and potatoes and schnitzel and rice and vegetables, okay? Most people eat them all at the same time. You put them all on your plate and you have a little salad and a little schnitzel and a little this. Maybe you, I don't know, eat all the cholent first and then all the schnitzel. Okay, but most people, you partake in lots of things at the same time. Like you can be a studier, you can also be an athlete. Like in your life, it's not like, okay, the next 5 years I only study. No, the next 5 years I study, but we're going to play some basketball. I'm going to do some social stuff. I'm going to still be a son or a brother to my siblings, right? Okay, you have a multi-dimensional life. So same as with pleasure. You have 5 pleasures that you're going to try to maximize, but you can do them all at the same time. So even though I'm going to give them to you in order, okay, you need to try to do all of them at the same time. Okay, the lowest level of pleasure that a human being can have, and it's coming back to this book. I'll tell you why. Because what I'm telling you here is this is how you have to judge if you're having a good life. These are the tools for judging if you have a good life. Not just do you have an 80, a 5 handicap in golf. That's one measure, but it's not the most important. Okay, the lowest level of pleasure that a human being can have is material pleasure, physical pleasure. What is that? Anything that money can buy. Food, cars, houses, clothes, theater tickets, anything that jewelry, you name it, whatever you can spend money on, that's very pleasurable. Okay? And we all have to live in that world. We have to. Why? Because we have to eat. So why not eat, nice food or good food? Why not wear decent clothing? Why not, if we can afford it, live in an okay house? Okay? You don't have to live in a mansion, but live in a nice house. Drive a decent car. Okay? Take care of your family. Buy your wife nice clothes. Why not? If you have the money, if God blessed you with the money, use it. Okay? There's nothing wrong with money. I have another expression. Lots of expressions. Okay? Money is wonderful as long as you own your money and it doesn't own you. As soon as your money starts to own you, you're in big trouble. But if you own your money, you should have as much as you can get, as much as God will give you. Okay? And then what that means is you have to be in control of your money. Okay, but money, anything you can buy with money is what we call level 1 pleasure, physical pleasure. Things I can do in the physical world. Okay. Level 2 pleasure, which is a different currency. You can't buy it with money. What do you think level 2 is? It's very pleasurable. More pleasurable than anything that you can buy.
Pleasure in like your relationship with other people.
Exactly. Exactly. Right on. Level 2 is relationships that you have in your life. Okay? And love fits into this also. Okay, so I could say to you, the relationship you have with, let's say, your siblings or your parents or even a good friend, you can't buy that with money. You know, they make movies, they used to in Hollywood, movies about, you know, like, I remember there was this Robert Redford movie, a long time ago, right? And he trades, the couple is down and out, right? Like they lost all their money and they're in Hollywood, and there's this big millionaire tycoon. Robert Redford's playing the tycoon, and Woody Harrelson is like the guy, and Demi Moore was like good cast in my day anyway, right? So they're in this casino, and this millionaire, he sees them lose all their money on a blackjack table, and he calls them over and he says, I'll give you guys, and the husband and wife together, and they're on their honeymoon. He calls them over and he says, I'll give you $1 million if I can have one night with your wife. And they think about it. And they end up signing a contract, and she goes off one night, and he deposits $1 million into their bank account, and the next morning she's back, okay, and she had one night with him, okay, for $1 million. And they're $1 million richer. And the whole movie is that their marriage gets destroyed, and they can't trust each other, and they regret it, totally regret it, because money cannot buy love. Money can't buy relationships. It was a good discussion about that. Okay, but the relationships that you have with people, with your parents, with your siblings, with a spouse, with friends, okay, is a deeper level pleasure than you're going to have in buying anything. Okay, like most of us would say, I would never trade my kid for a 6,000 square foot mansion in California. I wouldn't do it. I'm insane. I'm not thinking properly. Okay, money and relationships are a different level, different currency. They don't even meet. Okay, you don't buy love with money. It doesn't work that way. Although the Beatles like, can't buy me love. Okay, what's the third level pleasure? Even deeper than that. Now, I'll give you a clue. You live in Eretz Yisrael. There's Hayalim all over the place, right? I mean, you know. Okay, these guys and ladies, they're sons and daughters of parents. They have parents, right? They're young. They're 19, 20-year-old kids, right? Okay. Do you think their parents are happy that they're in the army? Actually, some of them are very happy. But as a parent, would you be concerned if your kid was in the army? Okay, now, and I don't want to, again, I'm not trying to be opinionated at all, okay? Because you guys are American guys, but I'm going to hit you like really hard. I'm going to hit you in the gut, okay? Has v'shalom, God forbid, Israel goes to war. It's possible, right? I mean, there's every Arab nation in the world wants to destroy us right now. So, has v'shalom, there's an outbreak, okay? And we have tons of tanks and planes and guns, but the word goes out and says, we need more soldiers. And they phone up, you know, the Americans, and they say, and you guys are here, but, you know, let's say guys back in the States, they say, we need 19, 20-year-old able-bodied guys to come and fight. And, you know, you have a friend back in America, and he says, you know what, I love Israel. I really want to fight for Israel. They don't want your dad who's 50. They want the 20-year-old guy, because they make better soldiers, okay? And he goes to his parents and he says, Mom, Dad, I love you. I mean, we have such, and they love him. And he said, but if I go there, you know, there's a chance I could get injured or killed. It's war, right? You know, war is messy. What should the parents say to him, or what should he say to the parents? Like, but we might never see you again. Like, we might never have, the relationship we have with you is so pleasurable. You're our son. We love you. The guy says, I need to go. Is that pleasure? Why would a guy ever fight, you know, voluntarily? Okay.
Duty.
Why?
Fulfillment.
No, it's because
He feels like he needs to.
Fulfillment. Helping.
it's good values.
Okay, I'll tell you why. Because you guys have all, no, it's not guilt. I'll tell you why. What it is it's a sense of helping. Okay, it's a sense of feeling a deeper meaning towards giving. Okay, that's really what it is. Because I'm going to a higher cause. Now I'll make, and that's a dramatic example. I'll give you another example. Let's say you become a doctor, okay, or even a technologist in like biochemistry or something like that, and you have the chance of discovering the cure for cancer. But you're going to have to put in 15 hours a day in the lab for the next 5 years. You're not going to see your kids very much because they're young kids and they go to bed at 7. You don't get home until 9:30, 10 o'clock every night, and you leave at 7 in the morning. You don't have a very good relationship with your wife. But when you walk out of that lab in 5 years, there's a chance that you might have discovered the cure for cancer. And not just that you're going to be a billionaire, forget about that. But you know how many lives you will save because of the research you put in, because of the dedication you put in? You will save hundreds of millions of lives, okay, for the next generations to come. Do you think that's pleasurable? That's a way deeper pleasure than even the relationship you have with people, and certainly way deep. It's not even about the money. The money is like, forget it. The pleasure, you can't buy that pleasure. Okay, so now we went from level 3 to level 4. Level 3 pleasure, okay, is about having a cause. Level 4 pleasure is about trying to create. And I just gave the example of that. Level 4 pleasure is, how can I be a creator? How can I be a giver? Okay, I'll tell you, artists and musicians, people, you guys like composing music, or anybody paint here or do, on the computer. When you create something, you get a lot of pleasure, very deep pleasure. Okay, you see like a lot of artists, a lot of people are artistic, they get a lot of pleasure from that. It's very deep pleasure. What is one of a woman's greatest pleasure? I'll give you a hint, it's also her greatest pain.
Childbirth.
Childbirth, right? Why? Because she created something. She created a life, right? Now she didn't, God did, but she was an assistant in doing that. Okay, but sometimes the greatest pleasure in life comes with the greatest pain. Okay, the highest level pleasure that humans, that's level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Level 4 is being creator. Why? Because God's a creator, and we want to emulate God. The more we can emulate God, the more pleasure we get in our life. What's the highest level pleasure a human being can have?
Connection with Hashem.
Connection with Hashem. So if I said to you, just behind this bookcase, he's sitting there, God's right there. You can go there, you can ask him any question you want. You can have a personal audience with him. A human being cannot have a greater pleasure in life than that. However, that's also the most difficult pleasure to have. To have a relationship with Hashem is very, very difficult. You guys, you're studying all year, you're learning, you're hitting the books, you're doing tefillah, okay, you're doing halacha, it's really hard to be an observant Jew. And never mind that, the kavanah is really, really hard. In the day and age that we live in, with all the distractions and phones and stuff like that, to have true kavanah and really talk to Hashem and try and have relations, it's really, really hard. But when you achieve it, it's up there. You can't have a better pleasure than having a relationship with God. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, had direct relationship with God. We can't, but we can try. Okay, we're not going to be Moshe Rabbeinu's. Okay, although you can try. But the greatest pleasure that a human being can have, and certainly that a Jew, is to try to have that relationship with God and to work at it. And with each pleasure comes work. Each pleasure, you have to put the effort in. The no pain, no gain, right? Okay. So, sorry, that took about 12 or 15 minutes. The purpose of life is to maximize pleasure. The ultimate pleasure is a relationship with God. Okay? Now, would you rather live a purposeful life or a non-purposeful life? By the way, one more word, meaning. Any of you guys have meaning in your life? Okay, these are my definitions, I'm going to tell you. Okay, what is meaning? What's the definition of meaning? Somebody says, to have purpose. Well, then what's the definition of purpose? To have meaning. You can't volley back and forth.
You know what you're doing.
Okay, how do you know what you're doing?
Learn more.
Okay, learn more.
I'm not giving a good answer. Don't worry.
Okay, so what do you think?
Actualizing your potential.
To actualize your potential. Okay, so what is your potential?
Well, it depends. You have to really self-search and figure out what your potential is.
But what's the ultimate purpose?
God. To have a connection with God.
Okay, so that if you have a connection with God, you're maximizing your potential. Is that
to what level? There are different levels of connection with God.
Okay, well, you'll know when you hit it. Okay, and even then, you're always on a staircase up.
Right.
But you'll know as you're going up versus going down. Okay, we all, like in tefillah and whatever, you know you're in the zone. Like, I'm feeling it today, or like I'm so out of it, like, we're not even in the same planet together, right? Okay, meaning is basically fifth level pleasure. A person has meaning when they have a connection with Hashem, not a direct connection, but when they have a connection with Hashem, when they've tried to maximize their potential. It's very good that way. Okay, coming back to this. So who has a better life? A secular Jew who has the ultimate play, or an observant Jew who lives in Eretz Yisrael that's trying to hit those 5 levels? What do you think?
I know what you want me to say, but why, if someone doesn't know any better, why isn't that just as good of a life? He lives his whole life thinking he has what
Tell
he
you
has.
why. Tell you why. Because I don't go for that anymore. I used to go for that. Oh, I'm ignorant. I never knew. Well, guess what? Your twin brother for 20 years has been telling you that. And that's why I wrote the book for $25,000, which to take was okay, guys, ignorance is not an excuse under the law. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is ignorance. Okay? If you choose to be ignorant your whole life, then you're an ignorant person. Okay? There are certain people that don't have the same opportunity to learn. I get that. But it's up to you guys, when you go back to America, wherever you end up in life, okay? You know what? You have your fellow Jews. We know that this halacha, you've got to reach out to them. You've got to tell them, hey guys, in a nice, loving kind of way. You know what? you really should get educated about what it is to be a Jew. Let me share a thought with you. Let me share an idea. Okay? It's up to you to do that. You can't, you've all heard this before. If you're walking down the sidewalk and there's a guy bleeding on the ground, you can't walk past him. You got to help him. Sorry, that's halacha. And if there's a guy, on the sidewalk who's scratching his head and he's Jewish and he's eating shrimp cocktail and has no clue what's good for him in life, guess what? You can't walk by him. You got to help him out. You got to give him a thought. You got to give him some warmth, some attention. You have to. Okay? So it's up to you. You're the future of the Jewish people. I'm just an old altakucker. Okay? But you got to. So ignorance. I agree with you that I was ignorant. I was ignorant, and I chose to get educated. Not everybody has that opportunity to get as educated as potentially I did, but everybody can get a little bit educated. So you say, well, what if a guy's ignorant his whole life? Okay, are people that are going to be smarter than more educated than other people. Not smarter, but more educated. There always will be, right? And hopefully those who are more educated will help the ones who are less educated. Okay? But as a Jew, when you have that Jew, that's why I started that story about my father. Okay, my father was ignorant in terms of everything to do with Judaism, but yet when it came to intermarry, it's like a knife comes out of him. I'm a Jew. So I say, Dad, if you're going to be a Jew, then let's find out what it is to be Jews, so that at least we can make an intelligent decision rather than an ignorant decision based on emotions. Let's do it on intellect as well. Let's get educated. Okay, so we need to all get educated. Okay, so just back to this. Okay, so you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say someone who knows their purpose in life and is striving for it has to have a better life than someone who doesn't have a purpose in life. If my brother was standing here today and I asked him, Jeffrey, what's the purpose in life? He would say, I don't know, because God does not allow us to know our purpose in life. He says, there's a God that created, I go with that. The Torah is nonsense, but this God did not allow us to know our purpose in life, so why bother looking? And I say, that's nonsense. That's just someone who wants to live a life of comfort and get away from looking for because trying to find your purpose in life is hard. It's hard. And when you try to find your place in the world, okay, and I'll end it here. When you go into, I assume a lot of you guys are going to go into professions or business, okay? You're going to, live a probably more modern life than living in, a shtiebel. That you're going to be faced with this, okay? And you got to remember, you got to always know who you are, where you came from. Okay, when you're studying, you know the history of the Jewish people. You know this. You know where we came from. You know the suffering that we had. You know what Eretz Yisrael is all about. You know what halakha is all about. Okay? But in your heart, you got to know what it is that you want to do, why you're doing what you want to do. Okay? What is your purpose? What gives you pleasure, and how you're going to achieve that. And when you know that, you're going to have a better life. Okay, that's what, and it's very, very important for the Jewish people today to truly understand, I'm going to go back to that word truth, okay? To be truthful with themselves and say, you know what, maybe I have $100 million, but I know there's something missing here. A Jew who lives like a Jew, okay, and wants to live like a Jew, because they have it in their heart, is going to have a better life, okay, than someone who doesn't. And that is, as I said, it's a very important message to take with you. Because if you want to be successful in business, in life, in marriage, okay, in studying and learning, whatever field you go into, okay, try to be the best you can be. But there's one thing you're always going to have with you. Okay, you're always going to be a Jew. So at least try to be the best Jew you can be. And you have to know what that means to be the best Jew. Okay, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to the Jewish people. I'll leave it at that.
Questions?
Would your brother? Does your brother have? Does your brother have a mezuzah?
My brother, I went down to his house 3 years ago, about a year before I came to Aliyah for Pesach, and the stipulation was this: it's 6,500 square foot house, okay? That I take over the house and I kasher it, and then I put mezuzahs up. He didn't have any mezuzahs up, okay? So then I said, and he had 17 rooms. It cost me a fortune, okay? At least my other brother shared it with me. Because I had to put kosher mezuzahs. I'm not going to put the cheap ones out. I think we paid like $900 for mezuzahs. Some crazy number, right?
For mezuzah?
No, because like kosher scrolls are like $35, $40 each times 18, 19 rooms, and then the covers and whatever. I mean, it was a lot. Anyway, I put mezuzahs up on every one of his doors, and it said, when I'm in your house, there's going to be mezuzahs. When I leave, now the question is, will you take them down?
But you're saying he was one of. His philosophy led him to be one of the, you said, the 1% who wouldn't put up a mezuzah even if...
No, he wouldn't take it down.
But let's say, in a new house, he said he didn't put up the mezuzah.
Right.
right? But you're saying if he had it up, if you paid him $50,000, he wouldn't take it down?
I said, take it down. I said, Pesach's over. I left. I said, I'm leaving now. Take them and throw them in the garbage. You can do whatever. They're yours. Okay? When I was here, they were mine. Now I'm leaving. They're yours. They're still up. Okay? It's about a year or 2.5 years later. They're not coming down. They're not coming down. Why? Because every Jew has a Pentaliyid. They know who they are. They know where they came from. They're not coming down. Okay? Unfortunately, we live in a generation where some people are so far removed that they don't even know that they're Jewish. And that's unfortunate. But most Jews, they still know they're Jewish. They know that their grandmother was, from Poland, or their great-grandmother, and that, they know this stuff.
Curiosity, your older brother, is he religious?
It's a wonderful story. My older brother stayed religious, but he married a secular woman. So his wife and his kids are secular, and he's religious, and he lives a very challenging life. That's the most challenging life, because he tries to keep Shabbos, but his wife and kids are out running around to the shopping mall on Saturdays and going to treif restaurants. And so I really feel for at least my secular brother is all in, like he's all secular, and him and his wife and kids. But when you're living half and half, it's really challenging. I advise you guys, if you get married, do not marry someone who's got a different hashkafa than you. Go with the same.
Okay. Also, what was it? Do you still try for your brother?
Sorry?
Do you still make attempts, to talk with your twin brother?
All the time. I Skype with him 2 or 3 times a week. We are really good friends. Even though we live a half a world apart from each other now, it's like, it's a 10-hour time difference. We literally live a half. We're really good friends, and we're really connected, and we argue like crazy, okay? And we always will. We always will. And our story is not so much our story anymore. Our story is the Jewish people.
Here.
But we really love each other. We were womb mates.
Here. We do try to pure kind of thing.
When I was walking in here, I was on the phone with him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was in California. That's who I was talking to when I was walking in here.
Right. And also, when your brother was running around on Shabbos and stuff like that, and people saw him in the stores, how many times when you told them it was your twin brother, they said, "Yeah, I've heard that one before."
And once there was a classic one. He was up in we lived in different neighborhoods. In Toronto, there's a north neighborhood and a south neighborhood, right? So one day he's up at my house. He came for lunch, for Shabbos lunch. I'm coming home from shul. I'm walking home, and he drives by, and I'm with the rabbi, and he drives, hey Larry, hey Rabbi. But he knew who he was. He knows who he is. He's not trying to play games. He's not trying to play games. But we had many, many times. I mean, most people won't tell you. They don't call you. They just think you're a fraud, and that's it. The ones that sometimes people will tell you, hey, I saw you in a treif restaurant, or I saw you. It was an interesting dynamic. In business also, we'd go to airports. I mean, I could keep here for 5 hours on twin stories. I go to airports, some people waving at me. I don't know this person. I never met this person. I wave back. I mean, it's some great. I'll just tell you. Can I take?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, the twin stories are the best, right? So one day I'm going on this meeting at Nestle, big company, right? You guys have all heard of Nestle, right? Okay. And I'm meeting a big contract. It's like $1.2 million contract. And of course, I get into traffic, Toronto traffic, like every other city, and I'm running late. And I pull into the parking lot, Nestle, just as my meeting's about to start, and I still have to run up the building. And I get into my car, I'm running, and somebody's honking at me, waving. Hey, Jeffrey, how you doing? I don't know this person, never met this person, right? Hey. So I walk over, say hi, hey, how was that? Our kids, when they played hockey yesterday, wasn't that fun? Yeah, it was great. Okay, I gotta go, right? So I run upstairs, right? And thank God, this person I'm meeting with, okay, is late for the meeting also. So I'm sweating, I sit down, and the secretary says she'll be here, shortly. Up for the elevator. It's the woman in the parking lot. She says, hey Jeff, what are you doing here? Aren't I supposed to I'm not meeting with you. I was supposed to meet with this guy from Spar. I said, well, I'm Jeff's brother, So we had a good laugh. Anyway, and listen to this. My brother phones me that night. He says, because of course she was good friends with him through a social group, like their kids play hockey together, right? He phones me and says, why were you so mean to my friend in the parking lot today? I said, first of all, it's not my. I didn't even know who this person was, as it ended up being the buyer that I had to meet. he says, you should be nicer to people. I said, Jeffrey, if I was trying to, the whole world, like, I mean, you know, I'm in airports every week and people are like waving at me and they're waving at you and you do the same thing, you know? So he was mad at me because I didn't treat this stranger, you know, like my best friend. It happened a lot. It happened a lot.
Do you have any stories where it was to your advantage that you got mistaken or something?
Well, I can be in two places at the same time, right? So, you know, when you're twins, you have that. You have that. I'll tell you, I mean, you guys, you want to run for dinner or not?
No.
Okay. Okay, I mean, it's funny because we put in about 20 switch stories, but one of the better ones. So one day, he was a counselor at camp. You know, like overnight camps? You guys in upstate New York have overnight camps? You know, like the cabins, like they're old wood creaky cabins. You walk, you know, you the creek. And, you know, the kids all like ghost stories, right? Any of you guys ever counselor at camps? Right? Okay, yeah. So, you know, at night, you know, around 8:30, 9 o'clock when the sun's going down, it's getting dark, you tell them a ghost story and try and scare them. So my brother was head of tripping staff, like for canoe trips and stuff like that. But he was also in charge of 8-year-olds. So there's this or 8 or 9-year-olds, maybe 9-year-old girls, okay, which are so, like, they're scared just when a cricket cricks, you know, whatever they do, like, you know, crick, 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 crick. Anyway, so one day, and they didn't know he had a twin brother, right? So one day he calls me and he says, come to camp, we're going to have a good one, right? Me and another friend, right? This is a true story, I'm telling you, this was great. So he says, come and bring certain things, which you'll hear about in just 2 seconds, right? So my friend and I, another friend and I, we drive up and we kind of like park outside and then we sneak in. He tells me how to sneak into camp and we meet him in his cabin. And he briefs us on what we're going to do. And here's what happened. So he goes into the cabin and it's night and these like 9-year-old girls, you know, they're all screaming, yelling. He says, okay, I'm going to tell the story of the man who could never die, right? So he walks up and down the cabin and says, there was a man who could never die. And they tried to drown him. They tried to, you know, cut his head off. But the man could never die. But then he lived and he became 100 and then 200 and 300 and he wanted to die. And he was hoping he could die, but he could never die. But now there's someone who's been chasing him that has a way to kill him. And I'm that man. And then at that point, my friend kicks open the door. He's wearing an executioner's mask with a tripping axe, like an axe the size of this arm. And he chases him to the back of the cubbyholes, and he starts to smash the axe against the, you know, the wood. And my brother's screaming, ah! And then he's silent. And then he comes up, my friend comes up from the back of the cabin. He walks in, just like, you know, ketchup. He had some ketchup in his pocket. He puts on the axe. I took care of him. He's never going to play the game, right? And then and the girls are like shaking, they're peeing in their, you know, like crazies, right? And then we wait, and he's in the back, right? And there's no exit from the back. And then I'm at the front, I come in, we were dressed the same, I open the door, and the man could never die. And the girls go crazy, screaming, yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, and so, you know, like the alarm goes off, you know, like there's an intruder in camp, and the camp security comes, and me and my friend, you know, we dive for cover, right? And the girls are screaming, okay? And anyway, you know, it takes about an hour to calm them down. They're like, we're waiting behind my brother's cabin. There's no way we're going to try to leave camp because they called the police, right? Because the girls were so you know, we shut up about it. And then about, I don't know, 5 years later, the kids, you know, when they were late teens, 17 or 18, then he let the cat in the bag, you know, like he saw some of them. You know, remember that story you told me? Like, how did you do that, right? I said, well, yeah, I have a twin brother. Oh, you know. But some of them are still in therapy to this day. It was so scary. Hold on, one more. Like, we switched on girlfriends. We switched on everything. One day my brother quick when he phones me, I was working at a store called Canadian Tire. It was like a home, what you call it, Home Depot store, right? And he's going out with this girl. We were secular, so, you know, you go with girls. I mean, and he, it was like a third date, and he phones me and says, I'm running, he was working, I think he was working at McDonald's. And he says, I'm running, can you pick her up? I said, I don't even know what she looks like. I said, just pick her up. She looks like this is her address. You'll drive up to the theater, you'll park the car, and, you know, I'll come in. So I pick her up. I don't even know what to say. I never met her in my life. I had no clue what her name was, right? We make some chit chat. We drive. I drop her off in front of the theater. I park the car. He meets me there. We didn't even have time to change clothes. He walks up in different clothes, and I watch her. And she like does a double take, but you know, she says, "Weren't you wearing different clothes?" No. One more story. this was the class. My brother loves this story. I mean, we had so many. Because it was our God-given right. We were twins, right? Right? So I start my career, I finished business school, I started my career at IBM. And in those days, IBM was like the computer company. And IBM, you wore a suit to work every day, you buttoned your jacket, and I kid you not, when the annual report came out, the public annual report, everybody would look, every guy would look to see what color tie the president's wearing, and the next day, if he was wearing red, everybody in the company had a red tie, including me. Like, that's what you did. Like, it's just like a really staunch company, right? Like, no fooling around, okay? Security coming through the wazoo, like cameras, and before security even got invented, they had every type of security, right? Okay. So I told you, I started my career when the personal computer came out. And the first year, you guys won't remember this, but if you do some research, for a year, IBM had a run. They had like the monopoly on the market. But then by about the 10-month or year mark, 2 or 3 competitors came into the game, and they called them clone computers. Remember the name clone computers? So they copied IBM. And some of these computers looked exactly like an IBM PC. Okay, but they had different guts than them, but they looked the same, and they charged half price. So they started to take the market share from IBM. So IBM put together a task force. There's about 20 guys on this task force to try and figure out how to combat this clone problem. Because here we were selling computers for $12,000, they were selling them for $6,000, and they were eating our market share away. We had to do something about it. We didn't want to lower our price, right? So I got asked, I was a young guy, and pretty innovative in high tech, and I got asked to be on this committee, this task force, and I was going to do the presentation at a national sales meeting. So of course the national sales meeting is on Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, okay? And they're asking me to speak about clothes. So my brother, we're living together, we're sharing an apartment, he's in the film industry, and he says, this is like, we got to do something. I said, Jeffrey, you can't do it, we got to do something. Okay, this is like, you get fired if you do something like this at IBM. Anyway, we set up a plan. Okay, we had similar suits. We had the same suits, and I go in, and you had like these security like slider magnetic cards. So I go in, okay, and I give my card to another guy, a friend of mine who worked at IBM. I had to brief him. He goes out with my card, and Jeffrey comes in with it. That's grounds for firing instantly. Okay, like giving your card to somebody, you termination. Okay, so it's number 1. So we meet in the bathroom. They do the presentation, then I was slated to speak right after coffee. So it's about like 10:30, they break for coffee, 10:40, 45, they get together in the room, okay? And I was schmoozing with them. I go into the washroom, Jeffrey comes out, I give him like my IBM pen and my badge and everything else. He comes into the room. I kid you not, there was 120 guys, all reps from all across the country, all the vice presidents. It was a big deal, right? And my brother has chutzpah like there's no tomorrow, okay? He's not afraid of anything. Honestly, okay? I mean, I have some, but he's got chutzpah, like coming out of the chutzpah. Anyway, he gets up and he says like this. He says, hi, I'm Larry Deverett, sales manager for the computer land account at IBM, and I'm here today to talk to you about clones. And he says, and I'm not going to give you the whole spiel because it went on for about 15 minutes, but he says, and how do you know me? Here's my IBM name badge, with my picture on it, so that's how you know I'm Larry Deverett, and my pen, and you see I'm dressed like an IBMer. He says, but I want to demonstrate to you today because the real problem is you think I'm Larry Deverett, but I'm not. I'm a clone. The vice president's saying, like, get on with, like, this is IBM. You don't do that. And he said, and now he sees that the guys are getting edgy in the room. I'm standing outside the door, like peeking in, at the door, watching me get fired, right? Because basically that was going to be the outcome, right? Anyway, he says, no, let me tell you, like, you think these are all the things that would identify me as Larry Deverett. Okay, but really I'm a clone. You think you're seeing me, but really under the covers I'm different. And that's the problem we have today with these computers. You're looking at them, they look the same, but down beneath the covers, they're completely different. And he plays a little bit more until everybody gets edgy. He walks over to the door and he says, and I just want to wish you guys all a happy April Fool's Day. He opens the door and I walk in and I say, hi, I'm Larry Deverett, IBM sales rep. and the room goes silent, and then somebody starts to clap. I think it was a vice president. And then everybody claps, and I saved my job. And they had to take another coffee break because like, it was really powerful. And at that point in time, there was just over 11,000 employees at IBM before email. Okay, they had like some type of internet I tell you, the next day, I was walking through the hallways. Every single person in the company knew. Oh, you're that guy that pulled the switch on everybody. He said, you should have been fired, man. You know, you're lucky to still have your job. But to this day, people still talk about that. It was a good switch. Anyway, enough of the twin stories. If you want to read more twin stories, just go online and read the book. Pleasure to talk to you guys.